Welcome back to Montford Boulevard. Today we're working on Art Deco furniture with traits in common with both automobiles and locomotives of the 1930s. Follow along for another restoration remake. We'll also road trip to Nashville, Tennessee, a city rich with Art Deco history. There's always something exciting to learn from the 100-year-old movement of Art Deco. This was a chair we recently finished. You may recognize it from one of our other videos. A customer in Tennessee purchased it, so we decided to hand deliver it. There was another piece of Art Deco furniture in Tennessee that we wanted to purchase, so the road trip made a lot of sense. Immediately upon arriving, we headed for downtown Nashville, with our target destination being the Hermitage Hotel. This is a well-known tourist attraction. It looks surprisingly similar to the way it did more than 100 years ago. You can see the state capitol in the background there. It's of course still visible today. You can see the awning as you're walking up to the building is very much an example of Art Deco, even the font in the name for the hotel. The marble is what you notice right away. The marble used in the floors and the walls is actually from Tennessee, so it's local, while the marble in the glorious columns in the lobby is from Italy. This hotel has boasted guests including Charlie Chaplin and the famous pool player Minnesota Fats, among many others. And while the lobby is more an example of the Beaux-Arts style, both Beaux-Arts and Art Deco originated in Paris, France, and there was some overlap in those movements. You'll see this letterbox here. This is quintessential Art Deco. That's in the elevator lobby. Even the phones for calling the front desk, Art Deco in style. The main Art Deco attraction, though, we're going to save for later in this video. It's really spectacular. Getting into our furniture project here, this is the piece that we drove to Tennessee to pick up. Now this is only the second time we've come across this style. It's quite rare, and this one was in very good shape. We did have to take it apart to get it in the vehicle to bring it back, but when we removed the mirror, we could see a stamp dated 1940. Our estimation was that this was made in the 1930s, so we were pretty close. Worth noting, before we headed back, we decided to stop at Waffle House. Always a good idea. We like to get the bacon, egg, and cheese hash brown bowls there, with the hash browns scattered well. Back in the shop, taking a look at this beauty. Really in good condition here, so nice to see. And this is only the second time we have seen this style. Hand-carved shoes there, a lot to work with. Missing a handle, but no problem, we're going to change those out anyway. No significant scratches in the body, that's fortunate. You can tell these are not the original handles. You can actually see kind of a ghost line of the previous handles. Taking a look at the drawer here, and the dovetails are looking clean. Quality wood in the drawer frame. The dovetail joints around the backside, same thing, just very cleanly, well made. Even the tops, you can see a couple of drink stains, quite common, but not a problem. All of that's going to sand out. Now this centerpiece is so impressive. We have other plans for this. That's going to be an entirely different video, so I recommend you stick around for that. Pretty exciting what we want to do there. This side as well, nothing major. Very pleased with the condition that this is in. And the mirror especially. I'm not sure we've ever come across one that's this well preserved. Looking at this gold glass, the person who owned it previously told us that this possibly came from France. We're not 100% sure of that, but look at the shape that this is in. These Bakelite clips we've mentioned, they are rare and actually quite valuable. We are going to turn this into a nightstand set, but we're holding on to this mirror. We're definitely going to do something with it in the future. It's just so well preserved. Especially the main mirror here. Look at this. It's pristine condition. Unfortunately, most people don't really use vanities today. Nightstands sell much better, so that's what we're going to do, but we will be holding on to this mirror. Looking at the back side here, it is unfortunately attached with one piece of wood that's going to need to be cut. We do get rid of these caster wheels. They can damage the floor, leave marks on your floor. They squeak. They're just much better options today, so we always get rid of those. I'm going to use a combination of the jigsaw and a handsaw to cut this thing apart. Got some tape there just to make sure I don't cut into the part that we want to save. Made a couple of incisions there, and here's where I have to stop with the bottom of this piece, and axe kick. Taekwondo lessons coming in handy there. Now I have this turned around. I'm on the other side of the bottom, starting the cut with my handsaw, and again using a combination, the jigsaw, and here we go. That centerpiece pops off. That really wasn't so bad. Now I'm going to pull this apart. I could pop this off quite easily, but I'm going to do this gradually and gently so that I don't damage the sides any more than is necessary. Came apart pretty cleanly. I was taking a look at this center waterfall piece, and look at this. At first I thought that was another solid piece of wood waterfall. We've only seen that one other time, but if you look closer, you can see those little lines in there. That is one of the cleanest examples of kerf cutting I've ever seen. We learned about this in the last video we posted from a couple people who commented. Thank you for that. But look at this, you can barely even see the kerf cuts in that seam. Quite an impressive job here. Now we're going to get these nails out of here. Kind of hard to believe. You can see the light and the dark in that veneer. It's the same wood, but they used another really rich sort of a dark stain. Hard to believe that's the same piece of wood. Just pop off these pieces of trim. All came off with very little effort. That's fortunate. Looking at the inside here, just pull those nails out. That's a pretty simple procedure. And here's the first look at these pieces kind of as a nightstand set. You can see just how well they work for end tables. Now this was strange on the back side, this diagonal cut here, so we're going to have to find a solution to fill that in. You'll see these nasty staples oftentimes in Art Deco. I mean, they do their job, but they're very difficult to deal with, to get out, to cut through. We were thinking about cutting along that seam, but instead decided to go up a little bit higher. And looking at this, you can actually see that it's not level at the top, which is very strange, the construction of this piece. Interesting how they just kind of pieced some of this stuff together. Now I'm going to get a straight line here, and same as before, I'll use a combination of the handsaw and the jigsaw just to remove that, and we're going to patch it in with a clean, solid piece of wood. Add just a little bit of sanding to get a smooth edge there. There is a little bit of a notch to deal with, and this is a piece left over from the center section that we don't need, and that's just about the right thickness that we need. So I'm going to cut that out, patch it in there. That's a bandsaw operation, pretty quick, pretty easy. I'll have to hit it from a few different angles so I don't bend the blade, but here we go. That's about what we're looking for. Tap it in with some little nails here. And I found the back was loose, and from the inside I didn't really have much real estate to work with, so what we're going to do is put a screw in there. We'll recess it. There is going to be a black stripe on the edge, so that's going to be easily hidden later on in the operation, but that was really solid with that wood screw. Now this is the piece of wood that I actually kicked off, and I'm going to use that to do the main patching on the back. First I'll make the horizontal cut, and then I will take the notch out. Doing the notch here with the bandsaw, pretty simple. Drops right in there, and that'll work to patch the back of this piece. Now I'm going to cut that curve out. Same thing with the bandsaw. Not very smooth, but that's okay. We'll add just a little bit of extra sanding, and then some Bondo will help bridge that gap there. Starting to feel more solid on the back end there. Funny coincidence here, this green writing that was on the back, bluish green, I didn't mean for that line to continue, but it just kind of happened that way. I used a section of the center of the Vanity to patch that. Kind of this fortuitous continuation there, if you want to call it that. Dropping in, there was just a little bit more of a gap here, so I'm putting in this piece of wood with some glue that was already in there, you probably saw. Just giving us a head start before we come in with the body filler. And this wood is thin enough that just with a few cuts with the blade, I can remove it just like that. Now we're going to fill some of these gaps in the side, the marks from the center piece of the Vanity. Tight bond too, and I've cut some strips, just a loose fit, again to save on the Bondo once we fill it. And that'll do just fine. Looking at the inlay wood on the front of the drawer, and again the ghost line from two different types of handles. Curious what the original handle was like on this drawer, but that's okay, we've got quite a collection. We found one actually in our collection that looks like it might have been what was originally on here, but we've got another idea for handles on this piece. Now we're going to put some Bondo, force it down through the previous screw holes, the two sets of screw holes, again evidencing the two kinds of handles. And here we are, just about ready for sanding to get that side nice and smooth. While that Bondo dries, I'm going to work on hand sanding for the shoe down here. We're really looking forward to seeing how these shoes come around. This time I'm actually going to leave some of that dark stain in those bigger grooves on the shoe. If you saw the previous video that we did with this style, we kind of took some of that out, but that's going to leave a nice contrast if we leave some of the original stain down in there. Now that Bondo has dried, we are ready for the more serious sanding with the orbital. Today we're going to be trying out these M Pro dust masks for the first time. They do claim to have a 99.6% efficiency at filtering dust. You can get a discount with our code listed below there. Each of these masks comes with 6 replacement filters. They're very easy to swap out. You just turn left to open and right to close. and each filter will last up to 60 hours. What we've noticed with just plain dust masks is you can smell the dust when you're sanding. It can be kind of gross if it's a piece of furniture from a smoker's home, but with these M Pro masks I could not smell any dust when I was sanding. So we know it's doing a much better job. Taking a look at this gorgeous inlay wood here starting to show through. I also noticed it's quite easy to breathe with these masks. There's a one-way valve, which helps make breathing much easier. Another very helpful feature, if you adjust these masks properly, they won't fog your glasses. If you go to bcmask.com and enter code ADF10, you can check out the M Pro masks for 10% off. Here's a look at the end tables after the initial sanding. You can still see there's some hand sanding that needs to be done, but the majority of it is complete. We'll need a little bit more Bondo for some of those little crevices there. This is General Finishes Colonial Maple, a stain that we frequently use, a gel stain, bringing that inlay back to life. And we are thinking this might be burled bird's eye maple or mahogany, not sure. If there's a woodworking person, please, we're trying to learn more about grain here. But look at these upper drawers, this is so fresh. Almost looks brand new. It's amazing how well they cleaned up. Adding a couple coats of lacquer now. Incredible just how fresh these upper drawers look. So these handles were from our collection and the Bakelite was stuck. So we used some lemon oil, let it soak for a little bit, and then the Bakelite did pop off. You can see the original paint is coming off of this handle. So we're going to remove all of it, start from square one, using the wire wheel on the grinder here. And with the automobile locomotive aesthetic we're going for, this bare metal is actually going to work well. You can see the upper handles here, and same thing, we're going to go with that bare polished metal look. The backers we dusted with gold and a little bit of brass. Made a template here so that we can get the handles centered, and we're re-drilling. Third set of holes for handles in these drawers in their lifetime. Now this is the bottom of the nightstand, and we're thinking this might be cedar that they used for the base. Interesting choice. We haven't seen that before, but just wanted to get a closer look. And this is what we're going to use for the backsplashes. Again, this is trim left over from another piece we worked on. We're going to cut off these top two ridges and attach them to the back. You'll see what I mean in a minute here. Like so. This will make it a little bit more sturdy, and we think it's going to go with the aesthetic of some of those locomotives that we were looking at earlier. So the previous stain was really kind of junky and gunky on here, so we're going to use stripper to remove it instead of all that sanding. Cover it in plastic, let it sit for probably 15 minutes. Using a toothbrush here, and yeah, that really helped. That old stain came off. Getting another look at it here, we're starting to work on the sanding. And now I'm cutting a stepped sort of a pyramid effect. Now Egyptian art actually did have a big influence on Art Deco, but we are also going to mimic, as I mentioned, the style of some of those 1930s trains. Going for that look with the backsplash here, and that's a start. This is after hand sanding those edges, getting that smooth, rounded look. And we're getting there. I'm wiping on some French lacquer as a base coat because we're going to come back in with some black lacquer and that will stick much better. There we go. Again, referencing some of the brilliant locomotives of the 1930s with their Art Deco flair. And there's another reason we used so much black on this set. And that was the highlight of our trip to Tennessee. This is the men's restroom at the Hermitage Hotel. Fun fact, the hotel opened in 1910, but they redid this restroom in the 1930s. And this was the result. This was really at the peak of Art Deco, and such an extravagant example of it here. Even the porcelain, they got green porcelain for the toilets, marble wastebaskets in each stall. Everything. The chrome handles. Celebrities who have visited this restroom include Jimmy Hoffa, JFK, even Elvis. Just fun to imagine the history in here. Even the sinks are Art Deco. This was voted the best bathroom in America in 2019. True story. You can even use this Art Deco phone to call the front desk. Right next to the shoe shine station. If you're wondering where that restroom is, it's in the lower level in this hotel, right next to this bar, which has quite a bit of personality of its own. Back to work here. We're going to complete this trim, and these are pieces that we saved from another project, and they're almost perfect. They do stick out just a bit, so we're going to have to grind that down to make it work, but it's not going to take a lot. Even though this isn't what the grinder is for, works very handy for some quick sanding like so. Going to make this just a bit thinner. That will help level it out. And there we go, glued in place with some epoxy. And then I added some Bondo, looking a little messy, but we will sand it out as soon as that dries. Just like that. It's fortunate we had that trim, that works perfectly. Now we're going to stain the tops and the sides again with that Colonial Maple from General Finishes. Such a handsome color, just a hint of orange but not too much. And it goes on really well with the wiping method. That's our favorite way to apply stain. Hitting the sides as well. We think this is really a good look for this nightstand set. Now we have some clear, natural stain that we're going to put on the shoes here. We're going to leave that piece of trim just above the shoe. It is okay if we get a little bit of this stain on it. It's going to get hit with black lacquer, but the stain's not going to interfere. But you can see there is some character in this shoe. The natural or the previous stain left behind really pops in those grooves. And now some black gel stain for the side waterfalls. Realize that the veneer that they used for these side waterfalls was very thin. You have to be so careful when sanding these. But it's taking that black stain really well. This was the next day. We have coated this with lacquer, with satin, the sides and tops as well. You have to think this through, what order you're going to do these things in, because it does have an effect. It's okay with the overspray here because we have lacquer on everything. You can see those different colors kind of popping though. As I mentioned, we are going to use a bit more black on this set because of some of the inspirations, and we think that's just going to give it more of an automobile locomotive effect. You can see the lines vertically in the back that we've left. I'm going to make those black as well. And look who it is. Katniss is back. He stops by every once in a while for his tuna water. How could you resist? He lives a few doors down, and we're not supposed to feed him, but he's our good buddy, so we always do when he stops by. Unmasking, and look at that starting to pop. And can you see the aesthetic? It's really got that locomotive feel to it. For the sides here, we do need to address these marks from the center of the vanity. You've seen some of the locomotives that we've used for inspiration, but we're also looking at a 1930s Chrysler Airflow. This was a vehicle that unfortunately was not very popular when it came out. It was ahead of its time, you could say, but since has become kind of legendary and synonymous with Art Deco. They actually had one on display at the Frisch Art Museum in Nashville years ago, and it's too bad we couldn't see one when we were in town. But the shape and contour of these vehicles has a lot in common with what we're doing with these nightstands. But here's the plan for the sides. This is 5mm thick wood. Cut it into these 3-inch strips. Now I'm using a lid to, I don't even know what it was, but it's the perfect radius to get this curve here. So I traced that. I'm going to cut it out with the bandsaw, like so. Sanded it to get it smooth, and that's going to be for the sides on both pieces. Black gel stain is going to add some character. There actually is a little bit of grain that shows through on this wood, which is fortunate. But when you turn these things black, they really have the look of that Chrysler Airflow. That's what it reminds us of. This is with a coat of satin lacquer. Attaching those backsplashes now, we put screws through them, filled them with Bondo, and you can see that's going to work just fine. Sanded and painted. There you have it. Looking smooth. Pounding in some nylon glides. This will help for protection on floors. And there we have them positioned, the applique for the sides. Put my tape on there carefully just to mark exactly where I want them. Now I'm going to sand. This is a harsh 80 grit. I really want to dig into the wood just so that we have something to grip onto. I've got both Titebond 2 and 2-part epoxy. We just like that extra support. We're not going to drive nails through these. We want to leave these cleaner in appearance. Carefully position them. And here's our high-tech clamping method. We'll let that dry for a bit. Once those are in place, that is the final step. Putting the drawers back in, stepping back to admire, and with that...
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
A look at the finished product here. We're trying to revive the Art Deco furniture aesthetic and again emphasize that vehicle feel just a little bit, that bare metal. Here's the before. This was a beautiful vanity, but again, a lot of people just prefer end tables these days, and that's okay. But these incredible Art Deco trains and the Chrysler Airflow, hopefully we've captured some of that here. If you enjoyed this video, we've got another one you can watch. Thank you so much for interacting, for the comments, and subscribing. All of it helps our channel. You're welcome back here at Montford Boulevard anytime.